The dust cloud rose behind the horse like a signal fire, marking the path of a rider who had been running from his past for 3 weeks straight. And when Matheson finally slowed his gelding to a walk along the ridge overlooking the valley, he spotted something that made him forget about everything chasing him through his mind. Down in the hollow, beside a struggling creek that barely held water in this drought season of 1878, a woman knelt in the dirt beside what looked like a fallen calf. Even from this distance, Cole could see the fierce protective stance of her body, the way she positioned herself between the animal and the circling buzzards overhead. Her dark hair had come loose from whatever braid or pins had held it, whipping around her face in the hot Wyoming wind, and she held a rifle across her knees like she meant business with any predator that came near. Cole should have kept riding. He had a job waiting in Cheyenne, money that would help him start over somewhere the Matheson name did not carry the weight of his father's debts and his brother's crimes. But something about the woman's solitary vigil, the set of her shoulders against a harsh world, made him turn his horse down the slope toward her. She heard him coming. The rifle came up smooth and steady, aimed right at his chest before he got within 50 yards. Cole raised both hands, reins loose in his left palm, and called out before she got nervous with that trigger finger. "Easy now, I am friendly, saw you had trouble and thought you might need help. I do not need anything from you." Her voice carried clear across the distance, low and sure. "Keep riding, mister." But Cole had already seen what she was protecting. The calf was young, maybe 3 months old, and blood matted the fur along its left flank where something had torn into it. Coyote, probably, or maybe a mountain cat if one had come down from the high country looking for easy prey. The little creature's sides heaved with shallow breaths, and its eyes rolled white with pain and fear. "That calf is hurt bad," Cole said, stopping his horse but not dismounting. "You planning to sit here until it dies or until whatever attacked it comes back for seconds?" The woman's jaw tightened. Up close, Cole could see she was younger than he had first thought, probably around his own 24 years, with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of creek water when it ran clear and deep. Dirt smudged her cheek, and her dress, practical calico worn thin from use, was torn at the hem. Blood stained her hands and forearms where she had been trying to tend the calf's wounds. "I said keep riding." But her voice wavered this time just slightly, and Cole saw the exhaustion in the tight lines around her mouth. She had been here a while, fighting a battle she was losing. Cole slowly lowered his hands. "How long have you been out here?" She did not answer, but her eyes flicked toward the sun, now past its zenith and heading toward late afternoon. "Hours, then." "Maybe since morning, watching the calf struggle, unable to move it, unwilling to leave it to the mercy of the Wyoming wilderness." "My name is Cole Matheson," he said quietly. "I worked on a cattle ranch in Colorado before I headed north. I know animals. And I know that if we do not clean that wound and get your calf somewhere safe soon, it will not make it through the night." The rifle barrel dipped slightly. The woman studied him with an intensity that made Cole feel like she was reading every secret he carried, weighing him against some measure only she understood. Finally, she spoke. "Why would you help?" It was a fair question. Out here, people did not stop for strangers. They looked after their own and let the rest of the world sort itself out however it would. Cole was not even sure why he had stopped, except that something about this woman's fierce defense of one wounded animal spoke to something deep in his chest that he thought he had buried back in Colorado. "Because it is the right thing to do," he said simply, "and because I have the supplies in my saddlebags that might save its life." Another long moment of assessment. Then, slowly, the woman lowered the rifle and nodded once, sharp and decisive. "All right. But you try anything, and I am a very good shot." "I believe you." Cole dismounted carefully, hands visible, and pulled his saddlebags down. "What is your name?" Lily Morrison." She turned back to the calf, one hand resting gently on its neck. "This is one of my father's calves. It wandered off from the herd yesterday, and when I came looking this morning, I found it like this." Cole knelt beside her, close enough now to smell the sun on her hair and the coppery tang of blood. The wound was deep, 3 parallel gashes that spoke of claws rather than teeth. Mountain cat definitely, the calf had been lucky to escape at all. Your father's ranch nearby, 3 miles east. Lily's voice went tight. But I cannot leave it to get help. The cat might come back, or coyotes, or… I understand. Cole pulled out a clean shirt from his bag, one he had been saving for when he reached Cheyenne, and tore it into strips. He had whiskey for cleaning wounds, needle and thread for stitching, and a steady hand from years of patching up cattle and horses. I am going to need you to hold its head. Talk to it, keep it calm. This will hurt, and it might struggle. Lily moved immediately to the calf's head, cradling it in her lap with a tenderness that made Cole's chest ache for reasons he could not name. She murmured soft words, a mixture of English and what sounded like Spanish, while her fingers stroked between the calf's ears. Cole worked quickly. He cleaned the wound with whiskey, feeling the calf jerk and hearing its bleeding cry muffled against Lily's skirt. She kept talking, kept that gentle pressure, and when Cole began stitching the deepest gash closed, she did not look away. Her eyes tracked every movement of his hands, learning, assessing, making sure he knew what he was doing. You have done this before, she said. It was not a question. Many times, cattle get hurt. It is part of ranch life. Cole tied off the first stitch and started on the second. Your father runs many head, about 200. It is not a big operation, but it is ours, my father, my mother, my 2 younger brothers, and me. Pride colored her voice. The Morrison Ranch. My father bought the land 5 years ago, proved it up properly, and we have been building ever since. Cole heard what she did not say in those words. Homesteaders, then, fighting for every acre in a territory where the big ranchers wanted it all for themselves. He knew that fight. His own father had lost it back in Colorado, broken by debt and drought and the cattle barons who controlled the water rights. Must be hard work for a family operation. Everything worth having is hard work. Lily's eyes met his over the calf's body. You learn that young out here, or you do not survive. The truth of it sat between them, solid as stone. Cole finished the stitching and wrapped the wound with the last clean strips of his shirt. The calf had quieted, exhausted from pain and fear, but its breathing seemed stronger now, more regular. It might make it after all. We need to get it back to your ranch, Cole said, sitting back on his heels. It needs rest and water and somewhere safe to heal. Can you ride? Of course I can ride. Lily's chin came up, almost defensive. I have been riding since I was 4 years old. I meant, can you ride with me? We can tie the calf across my saddle and you can sit behind to make sure it does not fall. It is not far, you said. 3 miles. Lily hesitated. Cole understood. She did not know him, had no reason to trust him beyond the fact that he had helped her save the calf. But the sun was dropping lower, shadows lengthening across the valley, and they both knew what would happen if they stayed out here much longer. All right, she said finally. But I keep the rifle. Cole almost smiled. Would not have it any other way. Between the two of them, they managed to lift the calf. It was heavier than it looked, solid muscle under soft hide, and Cole felt the strain in his shoulders as they draped it carefully across his saddle. His gelding, a patient bay named Rusty, snorted and shifted but held steady. Cole had trained him well for ranch work, and carrying an injured calf was nothing compared to some of the things they had endured together. He mounted first, settling himself behind the saddle with the calf balanced in front of him. Then he reached down for Lily. She took his hand, her palm rough with calluses that matched his own, and swung up behind him with the easy grace of someone who had spent her life on horseback. The rifle she kept across her lap, just as she had promised. East? Cole asked, feeling the warmth of her pressed against his back, her arms wrapped around his waist to keep her balance. East. Follow the creek bed until you see the cottonwoods, then head toward the rise. Cole nudged Rusty into a careful walk. The calf's weight made the horse move slower than usual, but steady. Behind him, Lily held on tight, and Cole found himself very aware of every breath she took, every small shift of her body against his. It had been a long time since he had been close to a woman like this. Too long since he had let himself think about anything beyond survival and moving forward. The sun painted the landscape in shades of gold and amber as they rode. Wyoming territory in late summer was beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way. The grass grew sparse and tough, the creek beds ran mostly dry, and the mountains in the distance promised water and coolness that always seemed just out of reach. But there was a grandeur to it, a sense of space and possibility that made a man feel like he could start over, become someone new. "You said you worked in Colorado," Lily said after they had ridden in silence for a while. "What brings you north?" Cole considered how much to tell her. The truth was complicated and painful, full of things he did not like to think about, but something about Lily invited honesty. Maybe it was the way she had looked at him when she lowered her rifle, like she could see straight through to whatever was real inside him. "My father died 6 months ago. Heart gave out, he left debts I could not pay, and the ranch went to the bank. My older brother, Cole paused, choosing his words carefully. He chose a different path. I needed a fresh start. I am sorry about your father." Lily's voice softened. "Losing a parent is hard." "Did you lose one?" "No, but I know people who have. Out here, death is never far away." Her arms tightened slightly around his waist. "That is why we fight so hard for what we love, because it can be gone in a heartbeat." They crested a small rise, and Cole saw the cottonwoods Lily had mentioned, a cluster of green that marked water and life in the brown landscape. Beyond them, smoke rose from a chimney, and he could make out the shapes of buildings, a house and barn and corrals. "That is home," Lily said, and Cole heard the relief in her voice. As they approached, dogs started barking, and Cole saw a man emerge from the barn, hand shading his eyes against the lowering sun. The man was broad-shouldered and weathered, with gray threading through his dark hair, and he carried himself with the solid competence of someone who had worked the land his entire life. "Lily." The man's voice carried concern and confusion as he took in the scene of his daughter riding behind a strange man with a wounded calf draped across the saddle. "It is all right, Papa." Lily slid down from the horse before Cole could offer to help her. "This is Cole Matheson. He helped me save the calf." Thomas Morrison looked Cole up and down with the same assessing gaze his daughter had used earlier. Cole met his eyes steadily, understanding this was a test he needed to pass. "What happened?" Morrison asked, moving to help Cole with the calf. "Mountain cat," Cole said, dismounting carefully. "Got the calf pretty good on the left flank. I stitched it up, but it needs rest and watching." Together, they carried the calf toward the barn while Lily explained what had happened, how she had found the calf at dawn and stayed with it all day, how Cole had ridden up and offered help. Morrison listened without interrupting, his face unreadable, but Cole noticed he handled the calf with gentle care, settling it into a clean stall on fresh hay. "You did good work," Morrison said finally, examining Cole's stitching. "Might have saved its life. Your daughter did the hard part. She protected it all day alone." Morrison's eyes softened as he looked at Lily. "That sounds like my girl, stubborn as the day is long and twice as fierce." He turned back to Cole. "You have a place to stay tonight, Mr. Matheson?" "I was heading for Cheyenne, figured to camp along the way." "It will be dark soon, and you gave up your time and supplies to help my daughter. Least we can do is offer you supper and a place in the bunkhouse." Morrison extended his hand. "Thomas Morrison, and I thank you for what you did today." Cole shook his hand, feeling the strength in the older man's grip. "I appreciate the offer. Been a while since I had a home-cooked meal." "Then you are in for a treat. My wife Carmen, she is the best cook in the territory." Morrison smiled for the first time, and Cole saw where Lily got her strong features. "Come on up to the house. Lily, you get yourself cleaned up. Your mother has been worried." The Morrison house was modest but well-built, solid logs chinked tight against the weather with real glass windows and a stone chimney. Inside, it smelled like bread and stew, and a woman with dark hair streaked with silver looked up from the stove as they entered. Lily, gracias a Dios. Carmen Morrison pulled her daughter into a fierce embrace, speaking rapid Spanish that Cole only partially understood. Then she noticed Cole standing awkwardly by the door and switched to English. "And who is this?" "Mama, this is Cole Matheson. He helped me save the calf." Lily stepped back, smiling at her mother. "Papa invited him for supper." Carmen's eyes, the same creekwater color as her daughter's, studied Cole with a mother's protective scrutiny, but her smile was warm when she spoke. "Then you are welcome in our home, Mr. Matheson. Please sit." "Supper is almost ready." Two boys thundered down the stairs, stopping short when they saw a stranger in their kitchen. They looked to be about 12 and 14, all gangly limbs and curiosity. "Boys, this is Mr. Matheson," Thomas said. "He helped your sister today. Mind your manners." The younger one, introduced as Miguel, peppered Cole with questions about the mountain cat and the stitching while his older brother, Daniel, listened with teenage reserve. Lily disappeared to wash and change, and when she came back, Cole almost did not recognize her. She had cleaned the dirt and blood away, changed into a simple blue dress that brought out her eyes, and bound her dark hair back in a neat braid. She was beautiful, Cole realized with a start that went straight through his chest. Not pretty in the delicate way of town girls, but beautiful with the kind of strength and spirit that made a man think about forever. Supper was exactly as good as Thomas had promised. Carmen's stew was rich with beef and vegetables, served with fresh bread and butter, and Cole found himself eating more than he had in weeks. The family talked easily around the table, including him in their conversation, asking about Colorado and his plans in Cheyenne, sharing stories about the ranch and the neighbors. It felt like home in a way Cole had not experienced since before his father got sick. The warmth of it, the easy affection between family members, the sense of people working together towards something that mattered, all of it pulled at something deep inside him that he had tried to keep locked away. After supper, Thomas invited Cole out to the porch while Carmen and Lily cleaned up. They sat in the twilight, watching the stars emerge one by one across the vast Wyoming sky, and Thomas packed a pipe with tobacco. "My daughter tells me you are heading to Cheyenne for work," Thomas said, smoke curling around his words. "Yes, sir, promised job at the stockyards." "Stockyards are steady work, I suppose." Thomas puffed his pipe contemplatively. "But they are not ranching." Cole did not answer. It was true. The stockyards would be 12-hour days of hard, bloody work with no sky overhead and no horse beneath him. But it would pay, and he could save money, maybe eventually buy a small piece of land somewhere and start over. "I could use another hand here," Thomas said. "Daniel is a good boy, but he is still learning, and Miguel is too young for the heavy work. With just me and Lily handling most of it, we are stretched thin, especially now with fall roundup coming." Hope flared in Cole's chest, unexpected and dangerous. "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but I do not want charity. This is not charity, this is business." Thomas met his eyes squarely. "You clearly know cattle, you have skills I need, and you proved yourself trustworthy today. I can pay standard ranch hand wages plus room and board. You would bunk over the barn. It is not fancy, but it is warm and dry. What about the job in Cheyenne? Stockyards will always need men." "But a good ranch hand," Thomas smiled slightly. "Those are harder to find. Think about it tonight. Let me know in the morning." Cole sat on the porch long after Thomas went inside, wrestling with the decision. The smart thing was to keep moving, keep his plans, not let himself get attached to people or places. Attachment led to pain, to loss, to all the things he had been trying to outrun since Colorado. But something about the Morrison Ranch felt right in a way nothing had felt right in a long time. The screen door creaked and Lily emerged, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She offered him one and settled into the chair her father had vacated. "Papa offered you a job," she said. "It was not a question. He did. Are you going to take it?" Cole looked at her profile in the starlight, the clean line of her jaw, the way she held her coffee cup with both hands like she was warming herself against an invisible cold. "I do not know. I had plans." "Plans can change." Lily took a sip of her coffee. "I am glad you stopped today. Not just because you saved the calf, but because—" she hesitated, searching for words. "Because you did not have to. You could have kept riding. Most people would have. But you stopped and you helped and you asked nothing in return. That says something about who you are." "Maybe I am just a man who cannot ride past someone in trouble. Maybe." Lily smiled slightly. "Or maybe you are someone looking for a reason to stop running." Her words hit too close to the truth, and Cole felt his defenses rise. "You do not know anything about me." "No, but I would like to." She stood, setting her empty cup on the porch rail. "My father is a good man, Mr. Matheson. This is a good place. If you are looking for somewhere to start over, you could do a lot worse than here." She went inside before Cole could respond, leaving him alone with the night and the weight of a decision that felt bigger than it should. Cole lay awake in the bunkhouse that night, staring at the dark ceiling and thinking about everything that had brought him to this moment. His father's slow decline, watching the man who had taught him everything waste away from the inside out. His brother's choice to solve their problems with a gun and a mask, turning outlaw rather than facing honest poverty. The day Cole had packed his few belongings and ridden away from everything he had ever known, he had thought that moving forward meant leaving everything behind, cutting himself off from connections that could hurt him. But maybe Lily was right. Maybe he had just been running, afraid to stop because stopping meant feeling all the things he had been trying to avoid. When dawn light crept through the bunkhouse window, Cole had made his decision. He found Thomas in the barn, checking on the calf. The little creature was standing, shaky but alert, and it bleated when Thomas offered it water from a bucket. "It is going to make it," Thomas said with satisfaction. "Thanks to your quick work yesterday." "About your offer," Cole said. "If it still stands, I would like to accept." Thomas straightened, a smile creasing his weathered face. "It stands. Welcome to the Morrison Ranch, Cole." They shook hands, and Cole felt something settle in his chest, something that had been restless and uncertain for longer than he wanted to admit. The first weeks of work passed in a blur of hard physical labor that left Cole exhausted and satisfied in equal measure. He rose before dawn to help with feeding and watering, spent long days riding fence lines and checking cattle, and fell into his bunk each night too tired to dream. Thomas was a fair boss, quick to show Cole how he wanted things done but willing to listen when Cole had suggestions based on his Colorado experience. Miguel and Daniel warmed to him quickly, especially when they discovered Cole could teach them tricks for roping and riding. Carmen fed him like she was trying to make up for every meal he had missed on the trail, and Thomas began consulting him on ranch decisions, treating him less like a hired hand and more like a partner. But it was Lily who occupied Cole's thoughts in the quiet moments, when he was riding alone across the range or lying awake in the bunkhouse at night. She worked alongside the men without complaint, as skilled with a rope as any cowboy Cole had ever met. She could brand cattle, doctor horses, and shoot straight enough to bring down a running coyote at 100 yards. But she was also tender with the animals, patient with her younger brothers, and quick to laugh when something struck her as funny. Cole found himself watching for her in the mornings, listening for her voice in the barn, looking for excuses to work near wherever she was working. And unless he was imagining things, she seemed to seek him out just as much, always managing to be around when he was breaking horses or fixing tack, or doing any of the 100 tasks that kept a ranch running. One afternoon in early September, they rode out together to check on the herd in the north pasture. The weather had finally broken, bringing cooler temperatures and the first hints of autumn color to the cottonwoods along the creek. The cattle were scattered across the grassland, fat and content, while their calves, including the one Cole had helped save, played and nursed and learned what it meant to be part of the herd. "Look at him," Lily said with pride, pointing to the calf with the healing scar on its flank. You would never know he almost died. Your father said you have been calling him lucky. It fits, Lily smiled. Lucky that I found him when I did, lucky that you came along, lucky that he survived. They sat their horses side by side, watching the herd, and Cole felt a peace he had not known in years. This was what he had missed in Colorado after everything fell apart, this sense of being part of something larger than himself, of working land that rewarded honest effort. Can I ask you something? Lily's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Sure. What made you stop that day, really? She looked at him directly, her eyes serious. You said it was the right thing to do, but you could have convinced yourself it was not your problem. Most people would have. So why did you stop? Cole considered the question, wanting to give her an honest answer. I think because I saw myself in you, not the situation exactly, but the feeling. You were trying so hard to save something that mattered, fighting even though you knew the odds were bad. I have spent the last 6 months running away from fights I thought I could not win. Seeing you there, not giving up, it reminded me of who I used to be, who I wanted to be again. Lily was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I am glad you stopped running. Me too. Something shifted between them in that moment, a recognition that hummed in the air like the tension before a thunderstorm. Cole wanted to reach across the space separating their horses, to touch her hand, to say something about the feelings that had been building in him since that first day. But fear held him back, the fear of ruining something good by wanting too much. Lily must have felt it too because she broke eye contact first, turning her horse back toward the ranch house. We should get back. Mama will have supper ready soon. They rode in comfortable silence, but Cole could not stop thinking about the conversation, about the way Lily had looked at him when she said she was glad he stopped running. There had been something in her eyes, something that looked a lot like the hope and longing he felt every time he was near her. That evening, after supper, Carmen pulled Cole aside while Lily was upstairs helping the boys with their reading lessons. You have feelings for my daughter, Carmen said. It was not a question. Cole felt heat rise in his face. Ma'am, I have not done anything inappropriate. I know. I see how you look at her when you think no one is watching, and I see how she looks at you. Carmen's expression was serious but not unkind. Lily is my only daughter, Cole. She is strong and smart and capable of running this ranch someday. She has had boys interested before, but she never paid them any mind. She is particular about who she gives her heart to. I understand. Do you? Carmen studied him intently. Because if you are just passing through, if you are going to break her heart and move on, I need to know now. Better to stop this before it goes any further. Cole met her eyes steadily. I am not planning to leave. I like it here. The work, your family, the ranch, all of it. And yes, I care about Lily, more than I probably should after just a few weeks. But I am not playing games. If she feels the same way, if her father does not object, I would like the chance to court her properly. Carmen's face softened into a smile. Thomas already told me he approves of you. Says you are one of the best hands he has ever worked with and a man of integrity. And I see that you are good to my children, respectful to me and my husband. So yes, you have our permission to court Lily. But it is her decision, you understand. She chooses for herself. I would not have it any other way. Good. Carmen patted his arm. Then I suggest you talk to her soon. She is not a patient girl when it comes to matters of the heart. Cole found Lily in the barn the next morning, grooming her horse before the day's work began. She looked up when he entered, and her smile made his heart do something complicated in his chest. Morning, she said. You are up early. Wanted to catch you before we got busy. Cole moved closer, suddenly nervous in a way he had not been since he was a teenager. I talked to your mother last night, Lily's hand stilled on the brush. Did you? She gave me permission to court you if you are interested, if you feel. He trailed off, not sure how to put into words everything churning inside him. If I feel what? Lily set down the brush and turned to face him fully. You are going to have to say it, Cole. I am not going to make this easy for you. Despite his nerves, Cole smiled. That was so perfectly Lily, demanding honesty, refusing to let him hide behind vague words. if you feel the way I do. Like every time I see you, everything gets brighter. Like working beside you is the best part of my day. Like maybe I stopped here for a reason bigger than just helping save a calf." He took a breath. "I am falling in love with you, Lily Morrison, have been since that first day if I am being honest. And I would be honored if you would let me court you properly." Lily crossed the space between them in 2 quick steps and kissed him. Cole had been kissed before, but never like this. Never with the kind of fierce certainty Lily brought to everything she did. Her hands cupped his face and she tasted like coffee and honey, and when they finally broke apart, they were both breathless. "Yes," Lily said, her eyes shining. "Yes, you can court me. Yes, I feel the same way. Yes to all of it." Cole laughed, the sound full of relief and joy, and pulled her close again. She fit perfectly against him, her head tucked under his chin, and Cole felt something he had not felt since before his father died. He felt like he had come home. They kept their courtship relatively quiet at first, not hiding it but not making a show of it either. Thomas and Carmen approved, the boys teased them mercilessly, and ranch life went on. But everything felt different now, charged with new meaning. When Cole and Lily rode out together, their knees touched deliberately between horses. When they worked side by side, their hands found reasons to brush against each other. And in the evenings, they sat on the porch and talked about everything, learning each other's histories and dreams. Lily told him about growing up half Mexican, half white in a territory where people had opinions about such things. About how her father, a white rancher from Kansas, had met and fallen in love with her mother, whose family had lived in this region when it was still Mexico. About the challenges they had faced building a ranch and a family while navigating the prejudices of people who thought they should not be together. "My father is white, my mother is Mexican, and I am both and neither," Lily said one evening, her voice matter-of-fact but with an undercurrent of old pain. "Some of the white ranchers will not deal with us because of my mother. Some of the Mexican families think my father stole my mother away. And some people just cannot accept that love does not care about bloodlines. That must have been hard growing up. It taught me to be strong, to know who I am and not apologize for it." Lily looked at him steadily. "Does it bother you? Some men, even good men, they have ideas about race, about what is proper." Cole thought about his answer carefully because he knew it mattered. "My family was dirt poor when I was growing up. We had nothing but the clothes on our backs and the land under our feet. I learned young that what matters is not where you come from, or what color your skin is, or how much money your family has. What matters is what you do with your life, how you treat people, whether you stand up for what is right. Your parents built something good here through hard work and love. That is all I need to know." Lily kissed him then, soft and sweet, and whispered against his lips, "I knew I was right about you." Cole told her about his brother, the part of his past he had not shared with anyone. How James had been older by 3 years, always wilder, always pushing against the boundaries their father set. How when the ranch failed and their father died, James had seen it as an excuse to take what he wanted rather than work for it. How he had started robbing stages, riding with a gang that terrorized small towns across Colorado. "I tried to stop him," Cole said, the words heavy with old guilt. "Tried to talk sense into him. But he said I was a fool for wanting to work myself to death for nothing when we could take what we needed. We fought bad and he rode out. Last I heard, he was wanted in 3 counties with a price on his head." "That was his choice, not yours," Lily said firmly. "You cannot carry the weight of someone else's decisions. I know, but he is still my brother, and I still remember when we were kids before everything went wrong when we were close." Lily took his hand. "Family is complicated. We love people who hurt us. We feel responsible for things beyond our control. But you are not your brother, Cole. You are a good man who made the right choices even when they were hard. Do not let his mistakes make you doubt yourself." Her faith in him was like water in a drought, and Cole found himself opening up to her in ways he had not opened up to anyone. They talked about their dreams, about wanting to build something lasting, about the kind of life they hoped to create. And slowly, over weeks that turned into months, they built a foundation of trust and understanding that went deeper than attraction. Fall roundup came, and Cole worked from dawn until well past dark, helping Thomas and Daniel gather the cattle from the far pastures and drive them closer to the ranch for the winter. It was brutal, exhausting work, and Cole loved every minute of it. This was the life he had been born for, working livestock under open sky, solving problems with skill and determination rather than violence or shortcuts. Lily rode with them for most of it, as tough and tireless as any cowboy Cole had ever worked with. She could rope a running calf, drag a stubborn steer out of a mud hole, and keep her saddle through 12-hour days without complaint. The respect Thomas showed her was absolute, and Cole understood why. She had earned it through years of proving herself just as capable as any man. One evening, bone-tired and covered in dust, they sat beside the campfire while Thomas and Daniel checked the night watch. The stars blazed overhead in the clear autumn air, and the cattle lowed softly in the darkness beyond the firelight. "I could live like this forever," Cole said, stretching his sore shoulders, sleeping on the ground and eating beans. Lily smiled at him over the rim of her coffee cup, being out here, working with animals and land, building something that matters. He looked at her seriously. "Building it with you." Lily set down her cup and moved closer until she was sitting pressed against his side with his arm around her shoulders. "Is that a proposal, Cole Matheson?" Cole's heart kicked hard. They had been courting for less than 3 months, but every day had convinced him more that Lily was the person he wanted to spend his life with. Still, he hesitated, not wanting to rush something this important. "Not yet. But soon, if you will have me. I need to prove myself first, save some money, have something to offer you besides empty hands and good intentions." "I do not need money, Cole. I need a partner. Someone who will work beside me, who will respect what I bring to the relationship, who will love me for who I am and not try to change me into something I am not." Lily turned to look at him directly. "If that is what you are offering, then yes, when you ask properly, my answer will be yes." Cole kissed her then, deep and slow, tasting coffee and promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers and said quietly, "I am going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing me." "I know," Lily said simply. "That is why I am choosing you." Thomas cleared his throat from the edge of the firelight and they sprang apart like guilty teenagers. But the rancher was smiling, his eyes warm with affection and approval. "Daniel has first watch. You two should get some sleep. Tomorrow will be another long day." As Cole lay in his bedroll that night, listening to Lily's quiet breathing from the women's side of the camp, he felt a happiness so complete it almost scared him. Life could turn on a dime. He had learned that lesson hard in Colorado. But maybe, just maybe, he had earned the right to believe in good things again. Winter came to Wyoming with teeth, howling winds and snow that piled in drifts higher than a man's head. The work changed from ranging to survival, feeding cattle from hay stores, breaking ice on water troughs, and making sure no animal got separated from the herd during the worst storms. It was hard, relentless labor, but the Morrison family worked together with the kind of practiced efficiency that came from years of facing Wyoming winters. Cole proved his worth 100 times over during those brutal months. He was always first up, often staying out in weather that would send weaker men running for shelter, and Thomas began trusting him with decisions that affected the entire operation. By Christmas, it was clear that Cole was no longer just a hired hand. He was part of the family. Carmen made a feast for Christmas dinner, despite the limited supplies available in winter, and they gathered around the table with the kind of warmth that had nothing to do with the fire in the stove, and everything to do with the bonds between the people in that room. After dinner, Cole gave Lily a present he had been working on in secret, a pair of leather gloves he had tooled himself with intricate designs of cattle and horses and mountains. Lily's eyes filled with tears when she saw them. "Cole, they are beautiful." Your old ones were worn through. Figured you needed new ones. He did not mention the hours he had spent learning the tooling technique from a book he had borrowed in town or how many practice pieces he had ruined before getting it right. I love them, and I love you. Lily kissed him right there in front of her family, and nobody objected or looked away. They just smiled, because by now everyone knew these two belonged together. That evening, after the boys had gone to bed and Thomas and Carmen had retired to their room, Cole and Lily sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets against the cold that seeped through the walls despite the roaring flames. "I have something to ask you," Cole said, his heart pounding. "I know it has only been a few months, but I have never been more sure of anything in my life." Lily turned to face him, her eyes reflecting firelight and something deeper, some emotion that made Cole's breath catch. "I do not have a fancy ring yet, and I am not a rich man. All I have to offer is myself, my skills, and a promise to love you and stand beside you for as long as I live." Cole took her hands in his. "Lily Morrison, will you marry me?" Lily did not hesitate. "Yes, absolutely yes." They kissed, sealing the promise, and Cole felt like the luckiest man in Wyoming. He might have lost everything in Colorado, but he had found something infinitely better here. He had found love, family, purpose, and a place to call home. They planned a spring wedding, wanting to wait until the weather cleared and they could celebrate properly. Thomas and Carmen were thrilled, and the boys immediately started arguing about who would have what role in the ceremony. Word spread through the neighboring ranches, and despite the prejudices some people held about the Morrison family, most of their neighbors were genuinely happy for them. There was one exception. Garrett Sullivan owned the largest ranch in the territory. Thousands of acres he had accumulated through buying out homesteaders who could not make it through hard times. He had been after the Morrison land for years, making offers that increased incrementally but never reached fair value. Thomas had refused every time, determined to keep what he and Carmen had built. Sullivan showed up at the Morrison ranch on a cold February morning, ostensibly to deliver wedding congratulations, but clearly with ulterior motives. Cole was working in the barn when he heard voices raised in anger, and he came out to find Sullivan facing off against Thomas, with Lily standing between them like she was ready to fight. "I am just saying, Morrison, you are not getting any younger. And with your daughter getting married, starting her own family, maybe it is time to think about selling. I will give you a fair price, more than enough to buy a nice house in town and live comfortable for your remaining years. This is my land, Sullivan, my home, and I am not selling." Thomas's voice was hard as stone. "Now I suggest you leave before I forget my manners." Sullivan's eyes flicked to Lily, then to Cole, and something ugly crossed his face. "This is about her marrying this drifter, is not it? You think you are going to expand your operation, build some kind of dynasty. But face facts, Morrison. You are a small rancher in a territory controlled by people like me. Your daughter marrying some cowboy with no prospects does not change that." Cole stepped forward, his temper flaring. "I suggest you get off this property before I help you leave." Sullivan laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Oh, the hired hand has teeth. Tell me, Matheson, does Morrison know about your brother, about James Matheson, the outlaw? I make it my business to know who is working in my territory, and the name Matheson rang a bell. Did some checking. Turns out your brother is wanted in 4 states now, killed a sheriff in Colorado last month during a botched robbery." The news hit Cole like a physical blow. He had not heard anything about James since leaving Colorado, had been hoping his brother had come to his senses, stopped before he got himself killed or locked up for life. But hearing that James had killed a lawman meant there was no going back. His brother was a murderer now. "My brother's crimes are not mine," Cole said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "I left Colorado to get away from that life to make an honest living. Maybe you are just waiting for the right opportunity. Blood will tell, they say." Sullivan looked at Thomas. "You sure you want this man marrying your daughter? You sure you want his kind of blood mixed with your family?" Lily moved like a striking snake, grabbing Sullivan by the front of his coat. She was a full head shorter than him, but the fury in her eyes made her seem larger. "You do not get to talk about blood and family, Sullivan. You, who has stolen land from a dozen homesteaders through legal tricks and intimidation. You, who treats your workers like slaves and pays starvation wages. Cole Matheson is worth 10 of you, and if you ever set foot on our property again, I will shoot you for trespassing. Do I make myself clear?" Sullivan jerked away from her grip, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. "You will regret this, Morrison, all of you." He mounted his horse and rode off, leaving a tense silence behind him. Thomas put his arm around Lily's shoulders. "You handled that well, daughter." But Cole could not let it go. "What he said about James, I did not know. I swear I had no idea he had killed anyone." "Of course you did not." Carmen had come out of the house during the confrontation, and now she moved to Cole's other side. "You are not responsible for your brother's actions, Cole. We know who you are." But doubt had taken root in Cole's mind, poisonous and growing. What if Sullivan was right? What if his connection to an outlaw brother brought trouble down on the Morrison family? What if, by marrying Lily, he was putting her in danger? That night, he could not sleep. He paced the bunkhouse, wrestling with fears and questions that had no good answers. Finally, near dawn, he made a decision. He would ride to town, send telegrams to his contacts in Colorado, and find out exactly what James had done. If there was any chance that staying here would endanger the Morrisons, he would leave before the wedding. It would destroy him, but he would do it to keep Lily safe. He was saddling Rusty when Lily found him, running away. Her voice was cold, and when Cole turned, he saw hurt and anger warring in her face. "No, I am riding to town to find out the truth about what my brother did. I need to know if staying here will bring trouble down on your family." "And then what? If you find out your brother really did kill a sheriff, you are just going to leave, call off the wedding, and disappear, if that is what it takes to keep you safe." Lily grabbed his arm, forcing him to face her. "That is not your decision to make alone, Cole. I am an adult, I know the risks, and I am choosing you anyway. You do not understand. If my brother is on the run, there could be bounty hunters looking for him. If they find out I am here, they might come after me, thinking I know where he is. They might hurt your family to get information. Then we will deal with it together, as a family, as a team." Lily's eyes blazed. "What we do not do is let fear dictate our choices. What we do not do is let men like Sullivan scare us into giving up what we love." Cole wanted to argue, but the determination in Lily's face stopped him. She was right. Running was exactly what he had done in Colorado, fleeing from problems instead of facing them, and where had it gotten him? To a place of loneliness and desperation until he stumbled onto the Morrison ranch and found something worth fighting for. "I am scared, Lily. Scared that I will bring disaster on people I love, again. I know, but you are not alone anymore. We face things together now." She stepped closer, taking his face in her hands. "I love you, Cole Matheson, all of you. Your past, your present, your future. The good parts and the hard parts and everything in between, and I am not letting you go." Cole pulled her into his arms, holding her tight, feeling the fear and doubt drain away. She was right. They were stronger together than apart, and whatever came, they would face it as partners. "All right," he said quietly. "Together." They still rode to town that day, but together, with Thomas accompanying them for safety. Cole sent telegrams and received confirmation that made his heart heavy. James had indeed killed a sheriff along with 2 deputies during a robbery that went wrong. He was wanted dead or alive, with a substantial bounty on his head. Law enforcement across multiple territories was looking for him, but there was no indication that anyone was looking for Cole, or that anyone had connected him to James. They had different last names in some records due to a clerical error years ago, and Cole had been careful to distance himself from his brother's activities long before the murder. "It is possible no one will ever make the connection," the sheriff in town told them, a decent man named Harper who had known the Morrison family for years. "And even if they do, you have broken no laws, Cole. You are not responsible for your brother's crimes. Now, if he tries to contact you, if he shows up here, you need to let me know immediately, but otherwise you have every right to live your life." Cole thanked him, and they rode home in thoughtful silence. The threat was not gone, but it was manageable. And knowing the truth, facing it head-on, was better than running from shadows. Spring came late that year, but when it finally arrived, it was glorious. The snow melted into rushing creeks, the grass grew green and thick, and the cattle that had survived the winter grew fat on the new growth. The Morrison Ranch had made it through another year, stronger than ever, and preparations for the wedding kicked into high gear. Carmen sewed Lily a dress from fabric they ordered special from Cheyenne, cream-colored silk with lace at the collar and cuffs. It was simple compared to the elaborate gowns wealthy brides wore, but when Lily tried it on, she looked like something out of a dream. Cole could not breathe when he saw her. "You are not supposed to see the dress before the wedding," Lily protested, but she was smiling. "I could not help it. I heard you and your mother talking and came to see what all the excitement was about." Cole moved closer, careful not to touch the delicate fabric. "You are so beautiful, Lily. The most beautiful woman I have ever seen." She kissed him, soft and sweet, and whispered, "Just wait until the wedding day. I am going to take your breath away." The wedding was set for the first Saturday in May, with a ceremony at the small church in town followed by a celebration at the ranch. Neighbors came from miles around, filling the church to overflowing despite the prejudices some had harbored against the Morrison family. Love, it seemed, was something everyone could celebrate. Cole stood at the altar in his best clothes, a new suit he had purchased with money saved from his wages, and watched Lily walk down the aisle on her father's arm. Thomas looked proud and solemn, and when he placed Lily's hand in Cole's, he said quietly, "Take care of my girl." "With my life," Cole promised. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, the words ancient and weighted with meaning. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife and told Cole he could kiss his bride, Cole did so with a joy that made the small church ring with applause and cheering. The celebration afterward lasted well into the night, with food and music and dancing under the stars. Cole danced with his new wife, with Carmen, with neighbors who congratulated them and wished them well. And when they finally escaped to the small cabin Thomas had helped Cole build over the winter, a wedding gift that gave them privacy while keeping them close to the family, Cole carried Lily over the threshold and closed the door on the rest of the world. Their wedding night was tender and passionate, and everything Cole had dreamed it would be. Lily came to him with a courage and openness that humbled him, and Cole tried to show her with his touch and his kisses, and his whispered words how much she meant to him. They loved each other until exhaustion claimed them, and fell asleep tangled together, husband and wife, partners in every way that mattered. The months that followed were the happiest of Cole's life. He woke each morning next to the woman he loved, worked land that felt like his own even though the deed was in Thomas's name, and went to bed each night with a satisfaction that went bone deep. Thomas had begun talking about making Cole a full partner in the ranch, splitting profits rather than just paying wages, and the future looked bright and full of possibility. Lily flourished in their marriage. She had worried, Cole learned, that Cole might expect her to give up ranch work and become a traditional housewife once they married. But Cole had no such expectations. He loved her strength, her competence, her determination to be a full partner in every aspect of their life. They worked side by side during the day and loved each other at night, and Cole could not imagine wanting anything different. In July, Lily told him she was pregnant. They were checking fence lines in the far pasture when she dismounted suddenly and lost her breakfast in the grass. Cole was off his horse and beside her in an instant, worried she was sick or hurt, but when she looked up at him, her eyes were shining with tears and laughter. "I am fine. Better than fine. I am pregnant, Cole. We are going to have a baby." Cole sat down hard in the grass, overwhelmed by emotions he could not name. A baby. Their baby. A child who would grow up on this ranch, surrounded by family, learning to ride and rope and work cattle. A child who would never know the poverty and desperation that had marked Cole's own childhood. "Are you happy?" Lily asked, suddenly uncertain. "We have only been married a few months. Maybe it is too soon." Cole pulled her into his lap, holding her close. "I am terrified and thrilled and so happy I can barely stand it. We are going to be parents, Lily. We are going to have a family." They told Thomas and Carmen that evening, and the joy in the Morrison household was palpable. Carmen cried and hugged them both, while Thomas clapped Cole on the shoulder and said gruffly, "You are going to be a fine father." The pregnancy progressed smoothly through the fall. Lily refused to slow down, still working alongside Cole and her father, despite Carmen's protests that she should rest. She only agreed to lighter duties when the baby started showing, making it awkward to ride and bend and lift. Even then, she found ways to contribute, keeping the books, organizing supplies, and planning for the spring cattle drive. Cole became fiercely protective, fussing over Lily in ways that amused and touched her in equal measure. He made sure she ate well, that she did not overwork, that she stayed warm during the increasingly cold autumn days. At night, he would rest his hand on her growing belly and talk to their unborn child, telling stories about the ranch and the cattle and the life they were building. Winter came again, and this time Cole faced it with a confidence born of experience. He knew what to expect, knew how to read the weather and the cattle, knew when to push hard and when to wait out a storm. Thomas relied on him more and more, and it became clear that Cole was being groomed to eventually take over much of the ranch operations. In February, with snow piled high outside and the wind howling like wolves, Lily went into labor. It was earlier than they had expected, and Carmen sent Daniel racing to town for the doctor despite the dangerous conditions. But babies came on their own schedule, and by the time the doctor arrived hours later, Carmen had already helped Lily deliver a healthy baby boy. Cole held his son for the first time with hands that shook, staring down at the tiny red face and feeling his entire world shift. This was his child. His and Lily's. A person they had created together, who would depend on them for everything, who would grow and learn and become his own person. "What should we name him?" Lily asked from the bed, exhausted but radiant. Cole had been thinking about this for months. "Thomas, after your father, if that is all right with you." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Papa would be so honored. Thomas Matheson, I love it." They called the baby Tommy, and he became the center of the household almost immediately. Carmen doted on her first grandchild. Miguel and Daniel competed for who could make him laugh first, and Thomas spent every spare moment carving toys and building a cradle and generally being the kind of grandfather every child deserved. But it was Cole who surprised everyone, including himself, with how naturally fatherhood came to him. He was patient with Tommy's crying, gentle with his fragile body, and absolutely fearless about changing diapers and handling all the messy realities of infant care. He and Lily worked as a team, splitting nighttime duties and supporting each other through the exhaustion and adjustment of new parenthood. "You are a wonderful father," Lily told him one night, watching as Cole walked Tommy around their cabin, soothing him back to sleep. "I knew you would be, but seeing it is even better than I imagined. I just want to give him everything I did not have," Cole said quietly. "Stability, safety, parents who love each other and him, a home where he belongs. He has all of that. We built it together." Spring brought new life to the ranch in more ways than one. The cattle calved successfully, with only minimal losses, and Thomas announced that he was officially making Cole a full partner in the Morrison ranch. They would split profits equally and make decisions together about the future of the operation. "You have earned this 10 times over," Thomas said as they signed the papers in town, making it legal. "This ranch would not be what it is without you, Cole. And I want to make sure my daughter and grandson are provided for, no matter what happens." "Nothing is going to happen to you for a long time," Cole said, but he understood what Thomas was really saying. The older man was planning for the future, making sure his family was protected. Life settled into a rhythm that felt almost too good to be true. Cole and Lily ran the ranch with Thomas's guidance, raising Tommy and building their life together. They expanded their herd, improved their pastures, and earned a reputation as one of the most solid small operations in the territory. Neighbors who had once looked down on the Morrison family for their mixed heritage now sought Thomas and Cole's advice on ranching matters. But the peace could not last forever. In late summer of 1880, 2 years after Cole had first ridden onto the Morrison ranch, trouble arrived in the form of a bounty hunter named Jack Reeves. He showed up at the ranch one afternoon while Cole was out with the cattle, and he did not waste time with pleasantries. "I am looking for James Matheson," Reeves said, his hand resting on the gun at his hip. "Heard he has a brother living in these parts. That would be you." Thomas stepped forward, placing himself between Reeves and the house where Lily and Tommy were inside. "Cole Matheson works here. He has nothing to do with his brother's crimes. Maybe, maybe not. But James was spotted 2 weeks ago in Montana heading south. Only reason he would come this way is if he has family here." Reeves's eyes were cold and calculating. "I aim to collect the bounty on James Matheson, dead or alive. And if his brother is harboring him, I will collect on him too for aiding a fugitive." "Cole has not seen or heard from his brother in over 2 years," Thomas said firmly. "Now I am asking you to leave our property." Reeves smiled, showing teeth. "I will leave, but I will be watching. And when James shows up here, because he will, I will be ready." He rode away, but the threat hung in the air like gun smoke. Cole returned that evening to find his family gathered in the house, worried and angry. "I am sorry," Cole said immediately. "I should have known this might happen. I should have taken more precautions." "There were no precautions to take," Lily said fiercely. "You have done nothing wrong, Cole. This is your brother's fault, not yours." But Cole could not shake the feeling of dread that had settled in his gut. James was coming. He did not know how he knew, but he was certain of it. And when his brother arrived, everything Cole had built could come crashing down. 2 nights later, Cole was awakened by gravel hitting the window of their cabin. He slipped out of bed carefully, not wanting to wake Lily or Tommy, and peered out into the moonlit yard. A figure stood in the shadows near the barn, waving. Cole's blood ran cold. He recognized that silhouette, that particular stance. James. He dressed quickly and slipped outside, his heart pounding. Part of him wanted to wake Thomas to handle this as a family. But another part, the part that remembered being brothers before everything went wrong, made him walk alone to where James waited. His brother looked terrible. Thinner than Cole remembered, with hard lines carved into a face that had once been so similar to his own. James's clothes were worn and dirty, his beard unkempt, and his eyes held a wildness that made Cole deeply uneasy. "Hello, little brother," James said, his voice rough from disuse or whiskey or both. "You should not be here." Cole kept his voice low, conscious of his family sleeping nearby. "There is a bounty hunter in town looking for you. I know, Reeves, he has been tracking me for months." James laughed, a bitter sound. "I need help, Cole. Money, a fresh horse, supplies, just enough to get me to California. I can disappear there, start over." "Start over? James, you killed a sheriff. 3 lawmen dead because you robbed the wrong bank. How do you start over from that?" "The same way you did, by running." James's eyes narrowed. "Do not act all high and mighty with me, Cole. We both ran from our problems. You just got lucky and found a pretty girl to take you in." Cole felt anger flare hot in his chest. "I did not run. I left to build a different life." "An honest life, there is a difference." "Is there?" "Because from where I stand, you abandoned me just like everyone else. Pa died, you packed up and left, did not even try to help me. Help you, you were already robbing stages when I left. I tried to talk you out of it, tried to get you to come with me and start over somewhere. You laughed in my face and said I was a coward." They stared at each other, years of resentment and pain and divergent choices between them. Cole saw the boy his brother had been once, adventurous and quick to laugh, protective of his younger brother. But that boy was gone, replaced by a hard, desperate man who had made terrible choices and refused to take responsibility for them. I cannot help you, James. Not with money, not with supplies, not with anything. If I aid you, I am breaking the law, and I have a wife and son now. I have responsibilities. James's face twisted with bitterness. Of course. Your new family, I guess blood does not mean anything anymore. It means everything. That is why this hurts so much, but you made your choices, James. You chose this path, and I cannot sacrifice everything I have built to help you run from the consequences. Then you are a coward after all. James turned to leave but stopped. When they catch me, and they will, I am going to tell them you helped me, that you gave me money and a horse. I am going to drag you down with me, Cole. If I cannot have a fresh start, why should you? Cole felt the words like a physical blow. You would do that, destroy my life out of spite. Why not? You destroyed mine. James disappeared into the darkness before Cole could respond, leaving Cole standing alone in the yard with his mind racing. If James told the law that Cole had aided him, there would be an investigation. Cole might be arrested, might lose the ranch, might be separated from Lily and Tommy. Everything he had worked for could vanish. He had to tell Thomas. They needed to go to Sheriff Harper immediately, explain what had happened, make sure the truth was on record before James could spread his lies. Cole returned to the cabin and woke Lily, explaining quickly what had happened. She listened with growing horror, then pulled on her robe and went with him to wake her parents. Within half an hour, the entire family was gathered in the main house, planning their response. We ride to town at first light, Thomas decided. We tell Harper everything. If James tries to claim you helped him, we will have the truth already established. What if Reeves finds him first? Lily asked, holding Tommy close. What if James tells him Cole is hiding him and Reeves comes here shooting? It was a valid concern. Bounty hunters were not known for their patience or their respect for due process. If Reeves thought Cole was standing between him and his bounty, he might not wait for legal niceties. Then we prepare to defend ourselves, Thomas said grimly. He looked at Cole. This is not your fault, son, but we need to be ready for trouble. They spent the rest of the night preparing. Rifles were cleaned and loaded, ammunition was counted, and a watch was set. Cole barely slept, checking on Lily and Tommy every hour, making sure they were safe. Dawn came cold and clear. Thomas, Cole, and Daniel saddled horses to ride to town, leaving Miguel to watch over Carmen, Lily, and Tommy. But before they could mount up, the sound of hoofbeats echoed across the valley. Riders were coming. Multiple riders moving fast. Get in the house, Thomas ordered. Now. They barely had time to take defensive positions before a group of 6 men thundered into the yard, led by Jack Reeves. The bounty hunter had his gun drawn, and his companions, rough men with the look of hired guns, followed suit. Come out, Matheson, Reeves shouted. Both of you, I know James is here. Cole stepped out onto the porch, his hands visible but close to the rifle he had propped by the door. My brother is not here. He stopped by last night asking for help. I refused and he left. That is the truth. Convenient story, but I do not believe you, Reeves gestured to his men. Search the buildings. You have no legal authority to search my property, Thomas said, emerging to stand beside Cole. I am asking you to leave. And I am telling you I am collecting my bounty. Now you can cooperate or you can get out of the way. The tension ratcheted higher. Cole could feel the situation spiraling toward violence, and he knew if shooting started, people would die. Maybe his family, maybe Lily or Tommy. The thought made him dizzy with fear. Wait, he said, stepping forward with his hands raised. I will help you find him. I will tell you everything he said, where he might be heading. Just leave my family out of this. Reeves considered this. You will help me track him? Yes, but only if you and your men leave this ranch now and promise not to come back. Cole, no. Lily appeared in the doorway, her face pale. You are not going anywhere with these men. I have to. It is the only way to keep you safe. Cole looked at her, trying to memorize every detail of her face, terrified this might be the last time he saw her. Trust me. Before anyone could argue further, a shout came from one of Reeves's men positioned on the ridge. "Rider coming in fast from the north." Everyone turned to look. A single horseman was racing toward the ranch, bent low over his mount's neck. Even at a distance, Cole recognized the horse, the riding style, James. His brother thundered into the yard and reined up hard, his horse nearly sitting on its haunches. James looked even worse than he had the night before, and when Cole saw the blood on his shirt, he understood why. "They shot me," James said, swaying in the saddle. "In town. I went to buy supplies and someone recognized me. I barely got away." He looked at Cole with eyes that held pain and something that might have been regret. "I am sorry, Cole, you were right, about everything. I made terrible choices and now I am paying for them." Reeves moved forward, his gun trained on James. "James Matheson, you are under arrest for murder, robbery, and a dozen other crimes. Surrender peacefully and you will get a trial. Resist and I will shoot you down." James laughed weakly. "Trial? I am dead already. That bullet is in deep, I can feel it." He turned back to Cole. "I just wanted to see you one more time, to tell you I am sorry for threatening you last night. You were not a coward for leaving, you were smart. You built something good, do not let my mistakes destroy it." "James, let me get a doctor. Maybe you can still—" "No maybes left, little brother. This is the end of my road, I just hope." James's voice broke. "I hope you remember when we were kids, before I ruined everything. Remember that I loved you." He slumped forward and Cole caught him as he fell from the saddle. The blood was spreading fast now and James's breathing came in shallow gasps. Cole lowered him to the ground, cradling his brother's head, and felt tears streaming down his face. "I remember," Cole whispered. "I never forgot." James smiled, the expression transforming his hard face back into something that resembled the boy Cole had grown up with. "Good, that is good." His eyes found Lily standing in the doorway. "Take care of him, he is one of the good ones." "I know," Lily said softly. James's eyes closed, his breathing slowed, and then stopped. Cole sat there holding his brother's body while the sun climbed higher in the sky, feeling a grief that went beyond words. James had made terrible choices, had hurt people and destroyed his own life, but he had also been Cole's brother once. They had shared a childhood, shared dreams, shared blood, and now that connection was severed forever. Reeves holstered his gun, his face impassive. "I am sorry for your loss, Matheson, but I need to take the body back for identification to collect the bounty." Cole nodded, unable to speak. Thomas helped him stand, and together they wrapped James in a blanket. Reeves and his men loaded the body onto a horse, and without another word they rode away. The family gathered around Cole, offering comfort and presence. Lily held him while he cried, whispering that it was all right to grieve, that loving someone did not mean approving of their choices, that family was complicated and painful and still mattered. They buried James 2 days later in the small cemetery outside of town. Despite his crimes, Sheriff Harper allowed it, understanding that Cole needed closure. Only the Morrison family attended, standing in the wind while a minister said words over a grave that would never carry a proper headstone. Cole had expected to feel anger or bitterness, but mostly he just felt sad. Sad for the boy James had been, for the man he could have become if he had made different choices, for the years they had lost to pride and stubbornness and diverging paths. "He was wrong about a lot of things," Cole said as they left the cemetery. "But he was right about one. I built something good here, and I am not going to let his mistakes or his memory take that away." Lily took his hand. "No, we are not." Life continued as it always did. The grief faded slowly, becoming something Cole carried with him rather than something that consumed him. He worked the ranch, raised his son, loved his wife, and built a legacy that had nothing to do with outlaws and everything to do with honest labor and family bonds. 2 years after James died, Lily gave birth to their second child, a daughter they named Maria after Carmen's mother. She had Cole's dark hair and Lily's creekwater eyes, and from the moment she was born, she had Tommy wrapped around her tiny finger. Their family grew, Their ranch prospered, and Cole learned that happiness was not the absence of pain, but the presence of people worth fighting for. Thomas eventually stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the ranch, content to advise and spend time with his grandchildren. Cole and Lily ran the Morrison Ranch as equal partners, expanding their herd and their land holdings until they were one of the most respected operations in Wyoming territory. Neighbors who had once questioned the mixed heritage of the Morrison family now saw only success and integrity. Tommy grew into a boy who loved horses and cattle as much as his parents did, riding before he could barely walk, asking endless questions about ranching and life. Maria followed close behind, fierce and independent, and determined to do everything her older brother could do. And when Cole and Lily welcomed a third child, another boy they named Daniel after Lily's brother, their family felt complete. Cole often thought about the day he had ridden over that ridge and seen Lily guarding a wounded calf. It had seemed like a random moment, a chance encounter that could have gone 100 different ways. But now he understood it had been the beginning of everything that mattered in his life. That moment had set him on a path toward love, family, purpose, and belonging. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Cole and Lily rode out to the place where they had first met. The creek still ran through the hollow, and cattle still grazed the valley. They sat their horses side by side, watching the sun set behind the mountains, and Cole reached over to take Lily's hand. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Marrying me, taking on my complicated history, building this life?" Lily turned to him with a smile that made his heart skip even after all these years. "Not for a single second. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Cole Matheson. You and our children and this life we built together. I love you, more than I have words to say. I know you show me every day." She squeezed his hand. "Now come on, Carmen is making a special anniversary dinner, and if we are late, the kids will eat all the good parts before we get there." They rode home together, toward the lights of the ranch house glowing warm in the gathering dusk. Inside, family waited, children laughed, and a future stretched out bright and full of promise. Cole had spent years running from his past, but he had finally found a place to stop, a place to belong, a place to call home. The Morrison Ranch thrived into the new decade. Wyoming became a state in 1890, and with statehood came new opportunities and challenges. Cattle prices fluctuated wildly, droughts tested everyone's resolve, and the arrival of more settlers brought competition for grazing land and water rights. But Cole and Lily faced each obstacle together, drawing on the strength of their partnership and the solid foundation they had built. Tommy grew into a young man who was the spitting image of his father, with the same steady hands and quiet competence around livestock. But he had his mother's fierce independence and his grandfather Thomas's head for business. By the time he was 18, he was handling much of the day-to-day operations of the ranch, freeing Cole to focus on expanding their breeding program and improving their stock. Maria proved to be a force of nature. She rode like the wind, shot straighter than her brothers, and had a gift for healing animals that reminded Cole of the day he had stitched up that calf so many years ago. She talked about becoming a veterinarian, though few women pursued such careers. Lily encouraged her, reminding her daughter that Morrison women had never let other people's expectations limit their dreams. Young Daniel was the quietest of the 3 children, thoughtful and studious, more interested in books than cattle. He spent hours poring over ranch accounts, newspapers, and anything else he could get his hands on. Thomas joked that Daniel would probably end up as a lawyer or banker, but Cole saw value in having someone in the family who understood the business side of ranching. As their children grew, Cole and Lily found new ways to deepen their partnership. They traveled together to cattle auctions in Denver and Cheyenne, attended meetings of the newly formed Wyoming Stock Growers Association, and represented the Morrison Ranch in territorial, then state politics. They were respected not just as successful ranchers, but as people of integrity who had built something lasting through hard work and dedication. Thomas passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 68, having lived long enough to see his grandchildren nearly grown and his ranch secure for future generations. His death was mourned throughout the territory, and his funeral was attended by hundreds of people whose lives he had touched. Carmen, heartbroken but strong, remained active on the ranch, passing down recipes and stories and wisdom to her grandchildren. The years rolled on, bringing joys and sorrows in equal measure. Cole and Lily celebrated 25 years of marriage surrounded by their children, and a growing number of grandchildren as Tommy married and started his own family. The Morrison Ranch expanded to nearly 2,000 acres, and the name Morrison Matheson appeared on contracts and agreements throughout the state. On a warm summer evening, when Cole was 52 and Lily was 50, they sat on the porch of the cabin they had built as newlyweds and watched their grandchildren play in the yard. The cabin was larger now, expanded over the years to accommodate their growing family, but the core of it remained the same, a testament to where their life together had begun. "Do you remember the calf?" Lily asked, her head resting on Cole's shoulder. "The one that started all of this, Lucky." "Of course I remember. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if he had died that day. Would I have kept riding? Would we have ever met? We would have met. Somehow, I believe that." Lily turned to look at him, her face lined with years but still beautiful to Cole. "You were meant to be here. With me, with this family, with this life." Cole kissed her forehead. "Best decision I ever made stopping that day. Best decision I ever made letting you help instead of shooting you." They laughed together, the sound warm and rich with the comfort of people who knew each other's stories, flaws, dreams, and fears. They had built something extraordinary from that chance meeting by a struggling creek, something that would outlast them both. As the sun set over the Wyoming landscape, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Cole felt a contentment that went bone deep. He had lost his father and his brother, had endured poverty and pain and the prejudice of people who did not understand what the Morrison family represented. But through it all, he had found love, purpose, family, and belonging. The wounded calf he had helped Lily save that day had grown into a strong cow who produced calves of her own, her bloodline running through the Morrison Matheson herd. It seemed fitting somehow that the animal which had brought them together had become part of the foundation of everything they built. Tommy called from the house that dinner was ready, and the grandchildren thundered toward the door with the enthusiasm only young children could muster. Cole and Lily stood slowly, their bodies showing the wear of decades of ranch work but still strong, still capable, still together. "I love you, Lily Matheson," Cole said, offering her his arm. "I love you too, Cole Matheson," she replied, taking his arm with the same fierce certainty she had brought to everything in her life. "Always have. Always will." They walked toward the house together, toward family and food and the simple pleasures of a life well lived. The stars were beginning to emerge overhead, countless points of light in the vast Wyoming sky, and somewhere in the pasture, cattle lowed softly as they settled for the night. The Morrison Matheson Ranch was quiet and peaceful, secure in the knowledge that it would continue for generations to come, built on a foundation of love, hard work, and a chance encounter that had changed two lives forever. Cole had been a man running from his past when he rode over that ridge so many years ago. But he had found a woman guarding a wounded calf, and together they had built something that transcended their individual stories. They had created a legacy of family, integrity, and perseverance that would echo through the years long after they were gone. And it had all started with a simple choice to stop running, to help a stranger, to believe that connection was worth the risk of pain. Cole had helped Lily save that calf, and in doing so, they had saved each other. He had never ridden away, and he never would. This was home, this was family, this was love, and it was more than enough. It was everything.